for June 25th, 2025 be approved as circulated. Councillor Bushel, Councillor Evans, all in favor. Thank you. Recommendation of the minutes of the regular council meeting held on June 11th, 2025 be adopted. Councillor Bushel, Councillor Beach, all in favor. Carried. Is Malcolm joining us?
He's online.
Okay. No in camera. We're going to go into public and statutory hearings right now. The District of Sycamore's 2024 annual municipal report. Shauna, you're going to take that away.
All right, thank you through the chair. So I put a copy of the annual report for everybody on your desk for a manual copy, but in accordance with the committee's charter, the annual report has to be prepared and considered by a council before June 30th of each year, including financials. Bianca presented the statement of financial information on the 28th.
Just so people can hear you online, please, Shauna.
And so that was considered at the May the 28th council meeting and passed the statement of financial information. As well, the annual report published out for consideration for the public for 14 days prior to council's consideration. So it was published on June the 9th, advertised in subsequent weeks in the Salmon Arm Observer that it would be considered by council at today's meeting. Yeah, and I don't know if everybody's had an opportunity to go through it and if there's any questions that anybody has on the annual report.
Council, any questions on the annual report? Councillor Bushel?
No questions, just want to say great job again. It's easy to read and really appreciate it. Thank you.
Anything from the gallery? Any questions from the gallery on the financial report? I think we're good.
I just wanted to make one statement that we had no submissions with considered questions from the public as before coming in today.
So before I read the recommendation here, I just have one quick question. Now that I've gone through it and budget is over, I have a reserves policy. We do? Okay, thank you. So the recommendation that in conjunction with submissions and questions from the public, council considers and approves the 2024 annual municipal report as presented this 25th day of June, 2025. Can I get a move for Councillor Evans? Councillor Bushel, any more conversation, any more discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Thank you, that's carried. Moving on to bylaws and policies, assessment management policy. Bianca, there's a recommendation that council adopt assessment management policy number F15 this 25th day of June, 2025. Could I get a mover? Councillor Rich, Councillor Bushel, Bianca?
Yeah, so this is a pretty, I would say, simple policy. It's just to provide guidance for staff, just on what our asset management is going to kind of look like. So it's very, I would say, generic policy, taken best practice from multiple other communities and their policies. And the big thing here is looking at life cycle costing for our assets, which we will get into in the fall. Staff is still working on getting a good list of all of our assets together so we can really talk about them and what it looks like. And so this policy is kind of putting a new lens on our assets. So for example, if we're thinking about taking on a new asset, like our mountain bike park or our pump track, looking at it more at a lens of, okay, we're going to buy it now, but what does that look like going in the future? Just like we looked at, we got a new sweeper. So this year we put some money away, knowing that eventually we'll have to replace that new asset. So that's really what the policy is talking about, is talking about life cycle management of our tangible capital assets. And so this is just the starting point to our full asset management discussion. So there will be some additional discussions coming forward. So fall this year, development of an asset management investment plan. So really deep diving on our current assets and replacement values. And then next year, honing in on our service level reviews. So really determining, you don't need every asset at peak, as long as it's doing what you want it to do. Like you might not have the absolute best parks, but are they good enough? And figuring out what that service level looks like, that'll be a future discussion. So asset management is a huge undertaking. Actually, a lot of communities have designated people just for asset management. We're a smaller team, so Tom is doing this. I wouldn't say off the side of his desk anymore. He's pretty much dedicated to it in our finance department. And yeah, so more to come, but this is just the fundamental document to get us going.
Thank you. Council, any questions? All right, let's call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, staff reports, District of Sycamoose Development Corporation, District 6 Shareholder Agreement. There's a recommendation that council authorize the mayor and corporate officer to enter into the revised shareholders agreement with the District of Sycamoose Development Corporation as presented this 25th day of June 2025. Carly, are you speaking to this? Bianca, are you speaking to this? Speaking to this?
I can provide a brief overview for sure. So this, bringing this agreement forward came out of the discussion that happened at our last regular council meeting, where there was a big conversation about the length of terms for DOSDC directors. So based on that conversation, this is being brought forward to be updated in terms of the signatures and the addresses that are included within the agreement, because individual employees and the mayor at the time were directly quoted in the agreement. So we've updated that to be a little bit more current, so that in 5 years, it will still read as a document that is reflective of the current time. And then we also changed it so that that term is reflective of the 3 years that were discussed at the last meeting. So that's for council consideration today. Obviously there's space for more discussion, but we just thought that we would bring it forward and see where it went. So back to you guys.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions? Councilor Beach?
Not really a question, just saying that I think the move to a 3-year term is something that we really need to do here, because it really helps the work of the committee.
Absolutely, I agree. Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Bushel?
Yeah, through the chair, as we formalize the society, I guess you want to call it the Ferry Society and the shareholders agreement with the ECDEV, is there a rush to sign this? Like, I mean, I haven't really, I haven't seen the lawyer's opinion yet, and so is there a rush to sign this? Do we?
This is not directly related to that component. This is related to the actual active corporation. It had people's individual names within it. Now we're listing the offices. It was only the change from the names to the offices. And the term is the only change in this part. So it's not related to that component.
Anyone else? Councilor Rich?
So the people that are serving 2 years now that were just elected, will they roll into a 3-year, or will we start next year with the people that are coming up with the year, then they'll go into the 3-year? Like, how's that gonna work?
They're currently elected to their position for the duration that was elected for, so it'll switch to 3.
So it will switch to 3 then?
Correct.
Okay, except for the people that we just gave a year, and then they'll come up for reelection.
Okay. Councilor Bailey?
Yeah, so I guess it doesn't really kind of work with the language here that says that half of the directors will have their term expire in a given year, and then the other half will have their term expire in the following year. It doesn't work with 3-year terms, because there's going to be 1 year where you don't have to do any appointments unless you are doing 2, 2, and 3, which is probably what we should do. It should be 2 directors 1 year, 2 directors the next, and then since we have 7, 3 the next year, if we're doing 3-year terms. So you're not replacing half the board at once. So you're doing it as a chunks of thirds is what I would do. So I'd like to make that amendment to it, is that, council will consider directors. And it doesn't matter when, but 2 each year, and since we'll have to consider 3 in 1 year, right?
So the ones that just were reappointed go into a 3-year term, but the ones that are coming up.
That's right.
Them go into 3 years.
Well, no, we would do that next.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just stagger it, so, which it actually does kind of make sense, because then you never will have a huge turnover in the board.
And someone always knows what's going on.
Yeah, like right now, we have a more turnover of half every year, essentially, right? So here you'll have a third at the most. Not even a third in most years, so.
Do you want to make that amendment?
Yeah, I just want to make that amendment so that council considers appointments every year on a 2 to 3 director basis. And I don't think it matters in which year that happens.
And staff can be directed to do that, so.
So we don't have to change the recommendation at all.
No.
Just direct staff to change that too. Okay.
You'll update the.
Yeah, we'll update the document for you.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, carried.
I don't know that we had a mover in the second.
Oh, did I miss that?
Yeah. we
Moved
read
by
that.
Councillor Evans.
I'll move it and.
Okay,
Second
Captain.
it, doesn't matter.
Are we still all in favor?
I think so.
Excellent. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know how I missed that. Riverside Water Main upgrade. Daryl, there's a recommendation that the contract for the Riverside Avenue Water Main upsizing and improvements be awarded to General Assembly at a bid price of $928,886 plus. Could I get a mover on that one? Councillor Rich, Councillor Evans. Daryl, do you want to?
Sure. Through the chair. We issued an RFP for this next phase of the water main upgrade. We issued May 21st, closed last week on the 18th. We've done a review. So this project will see the upsizing of that water line from a 150 6-inch AC to a 10-inch PVC pipe to increase the fire flow along Riverside. Project also includes full road restoration, curb and gutter, some storm works, and then replacement of the concrete sidewalk. The boundaries or the project itself is from Martin to Temple. And it's been approved in the 2025 budget. 1.5 million allocated for that. All 4 submissions came in below the budgeted price. We assessed the submissions based on price, on schedule, expertise and experience, as well as references. So the recommendation is that General Assembly be awarded for $928,886 GST.
Council, any questions? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay, provincial quarry permit. Recommendation that council receive the information on a provincial quarry permit issued August 15th, 2019 for lot 1, plan KP 51394, section 1, TWP 22, range 8, W6 MKDYD 200 Old Town Road. Could I get a mover? Councillor Evans, Councillor Beach. Dean, do you want to take that away
Sure.
for us, please?
So a few weeks ago, we heard from a number of members of the public questions about a quarry permit on an Old Town Bay Road. So staff did some investigation, reached out to the ministry. It did take a bit of time to get the inquiry responded to. Did finally make contact with the ministry staff, discuss what is in the permit and what the components are. So attached to the council report is the permit that is in place. There is a quarry permit in place at this point in time. However, there is not a notice of work. So there is a component of permit. A notice for work is the general sort of activation of mining that can be in. So that is not in place. However, there is a permit in place that allows for a notice of work to be undertaken when they're ready. At this point, the previous owner had applied for a notice of work and had a notice of work, but that expired quite a long time ago in 2023. So there is a process that would be followed. The permit itself did include some provisions that were brought forward by council at that time, concerns about it being impacting and geotechnical and so forth. So there is some limitations within this application for it. Couple more. So the limitations that were included within the permit are an elevation band, which is 420 meters. Elevation on the property, and the yellow line is giving you that elevation. Next slide. But that's not the only component. The other component is the disturbed area on the site. So they're only permitted to do work within the disturbed area of the property To go beyond the disturbed area, they have to undertake further studies, both geotechnical and archaeological. So that would be required if they were to extend along, that's difficult to see on the slide there. That's the green line that carries on, which is the disturbed area of the property. Beyond that area, they're not permitted to disturb the vegetation or any components as part of this permit at this time. So constructing the road would come from Old Town Bay Road. We'd have an access permit through the district that would be a part of that. And then they would do their notice of work through the province to begin the mining operation. They have to construct the road. Provisions include a 5-meter buffer from adjacent properties, as well as retention of existing vegetation on the property outside of the specific area being mined. So only the area that's going to be mined is permitted to have trees and vegetation removed. The rest of the property is required to be left intact. This particular mine permit expires in July of next year, at which time a new application would be required.
So, council, do you have any questions on this? I'll open it up to the public after we're done with the rest of the agenda. But council, do you have any questions on? Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, I just have a question in terms of what is defined as the disturbed area. It is what I'm seeing without trees considered the disturbed area. Is that?
When you're out on site, it's a little easier to see, so not representing, can't just take a picture of it in the field. Because it's kind of an area that goes around a corner because there's just a road that's partially developed. But it's the road area as well as the previously disturbed site at the base. And there's a switchback road that has to go up to the top. And that's the components that's permitted under this permit.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Beach?
The chair, I'm just curious because I don't know this. When they describe a berm, is there a definite description depth of a berm that would hold? Is it based on the slope, the actual runoff slope, or how do they decide on an adequate berm?
There's actually an engineered design for the roadway that's included within the original notice of work. It would have to be reinstated if they were to build the road. But it's approximately a 1.5 meter ditch and berm combined. It would be adjacent to the roadway to protect for runoff as well as material.
Council, any other comments? Councillor Bailey?
I'm just gonna ask an obvious one because it's not a very large area. Is that? Am I looking at that correctly? That the area in which can be a potential quarry is quite small on the property?
I think that's relative scale compared to the rest of the parcel. Yes, it's not a significant portion of the property as a whole, but it is the area that's been disturbed previously. And the permit is clear that it would allow for additional areas to be looked at, but those require the additional study work and additional permitting. So it's only for that area under this particular permit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Rich, then Councillor Evans.
Through the chair, I'm assuming Old Town Road is okay to hold dump trucks on a continuous basis.
The access permit requirement is where the district evaluates. As far as carrying the load of a truck, yes, it's adequate for that. But we need to have an entrance to the site, the roadway and so forth that allows the vehicles to enter safely. So they can't have it has to be a perpendicular access point. They have to create a way for the vehicle to be able to stop. Can't just have a full flow of traffic straight out into the roadway. And that's the part of our access permit. So an engineer would design them.
Councillor Evans?
I'm good now, thanks.
No? Anyone else? Okay, we'll carry on. It's information. Oh, okay, yeah, we gotta move it. Did I get a mover?
Yeah.
All in favor of receiving this?
Yep.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, correspondence for action, the Okanagan Regional Library Letter of Support for UBCM Ministerial Meetings. Is someone speaking this? Take off.
Yeah, a month ago, I went to the Okanagan Regional Library as a representative of council on the board there. And they just, at that meeting, we talked about the fact that we just want to, every town has a branch of the ORL. is they're asking us to write a letter of support. They need to get like a 20% increase in grants, so they can keep up with growth in BC, and they invite our council to sign a letter of support. And there's a template, and they need it by mid-July, take the UBCM for their meetings. And it just helps out all little branches like us in little towns that are lucky to have a library. And right now, Penticton's the only town that doesn't have one, and they're thinking about joining it too, so.
Thank you. Is there any action on that?
Motion looks like Councillor Bailey's.
Councillor Bailey?
I just have a question. Where did 20% come from? It's like a 20% increase in core provincial library grants. Is there a thought behind that?
Through the chair, it's just, they're looking at, what they want to do over the next 5 years, and they're just trying to get a little more support from the government because they're quite a bit behind on some other, institutions that get funding, and they would just like to keep up with the growth of BC and things like that. So, yeah, they're not asking us for more money, except for the incremental amounts that they sometimes ask for at the next budget year to keep it open this extra day a week that we have it here. So this isn't about us, but it is about us because it would be more money from the government ultimately. But yeah, does that answer your question? Sort of?
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I asked is
I think there's everyone asking for more money from the provincial government or from us, and 20% is that, I don't know how much that would be in terms of dollar figures from the provincial government. So I just wanted to ask a little bit about it because, you know, when we support things like this, we should know what we're asking for the higher level of taxpayers for as well. Like there's one taxpayer, but
yeah,
obviously they feel like they need it. Personally, I just like to have a little bit more information on what does that mean that we're asking for? Is this like $100 million more that goes to libraries?
I just don't, that's why I kind of asked the question, like,
What does 20% mean? And
yeah, through the chair, one more time, it just, part of it that I can get you the latest finance report, but part of the reason that they want to do this, so they can keep small town branches open and keep them funded as well. Ultimately, yeah.
yeah, no, I totally understand that, but like,
what's the dollar
figured, what are we like?
So I mean, I read the letter and everything, it makes sense. I just don't know, what are we actually asking for in terms of dollars?
Of 20 is like 20%, like, is it?
It's $500 million a year that goes, that they're asking for a 20% increase, so that would be in effect $100 million. I mean, obviously, there is nothing in government that I come across that shouldn't be funded, right? I mean, all of it is really good, but I guess I'm just asking a question, do we know what we're
Supporting here.
in terms of what the net effect would be? And 20% is
20%, but 20% of what?
Yeah, well, they're asking for 20% in provincial library grants and the creation of a social well-being grant and a climate relief grant, to sum it up succinctly. But I can get you the numbers from our CEO. I always mix that up with CAO, the library CEO, and bring it to you guys if you'd like to see what Danielle Hubbard, our CEO, is trying to get the money for. I can figure that out.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be a stickler at all. It just, before I put my hand up, I'm like, okay, is this an extra $100 million of funding we're asking the province, or is it a smaller amount, say 10 million?
It's not even that, no.
Right.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, so just looking at the library's financials quickly, so of their total revenue, looks like 4.47% is of provincial grants. So rough calculation, almost 1.1 million is done of grants. So about $200,000 effect.
Oh, okay, that's very helpful. Okay, I fully support that.
Yeah.
Do you want to make a motion, please?
Yes, I'd like to make that motion.
Thank you, seconder. Councillor Rich. Any more discussion? All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thanks.
Now we know.
That was a good question. Does anyone have any
Thank you.
comments regarding the correspondence that's been received for this meeting? Councillor Bushel.
Wanted to ask about the wastewater, just checking with Daryl and seeing if we should be supporting that. And Daryl, did you want to?
Yeah, through the chair. I don't have a lot to do with the sewerage system regulations as much as maybe some other operations people do in other communities. We work very closely with municipal wastewater regulation arm of it, and that's because we're essentially, we've got our system out to just about everybody. So that's the body we're trying to work with and meet compliance. This other regulation body that Cold Stream is referencing has more to do with like septic systems and holding tanks and just everything around it, the authorized personnel that need to install it and maintain it and the record keeping and that whole branch of that. They're asking for a provincial review of the system, which I think, knowing our side of it, I think that's always a good thing. It's been a long time since that was done. So, I'm in no position to say I support that, but I would support that if I was asked about it.
Okay, thanks, Daryl.
Go ahead, Councillor Bushel.
Yeah, I just think, it's one of those things that probably hasn't been looked at for a long time. It's probably good that they're actually reviewing it, right? So, I would support it. I'm not sure if anybody else is inclined to support it or not.
Are they just letting us know that they're putting in a resolution that can be supported at UBCM? They're not looking for another support letter or anything? Go ahead, Captain.
Yeah, so thoughts are is that the district has an opportunity, we can respond to that and say, you can expect the district of Sydney's council support at UBCM, or this can be something that you note and then look for when you're at UBCM. So those are kind of the options today.
Okay.
Okay, we're good.
Okay.
Okay, anything else in information package? Okay, thanks. C, Sycamoose District Recreation Center Service Review Request for Facilitator Response, Lisa Hoskins, Manager of Local Government, Intergovernmental Relations and Policy. Dean, do you want to share the letter that's been received?
As per council's request, we reached out to the ministry in regards to a facilitator to be assigned on our service review component. We received a response back from the ministry, essentially saying they have limited facilitator resources available and wouldn't be assigning one to the district at this point in time. But they did indicate that we would be welcome to hire our own mediator facilitator if we wished.
So I just have one question. Is there any way that we can get the board to be the facilitator, the CSRD, as opposed to reaching out to another facilitator? Why can't the CSRD board make the decision?
So
Can we get it? Can we?
no, so that was investigated with the ministry with the service review component. Because this is a service with two parties, they cannot be inserted as a voting member of that process. So they could be a mediator or a facilitator of the meetings, which we saw with the chair. But we can't have them as a voting member. It's a service with two parties.
Go ahead, Councillor Bailey.
Okay, so this is really perplexing. How do you get out of this? Because we've said, we've given notice, we've tried to negotiate. I mean, is
Basically, this agreement.
agreement's dead. Right? I mean, or it should be, like, we've tried everything we could to reform it. So what's the next step to say we're not a part of this agreement anymore?
I think at this point, if we don't want to be part of that agreement anymore, we go not doing it anymore.
Right.
So I think that's,
the E.
I think that's the next step for us then. I mean, we're trying
We
everything.
will lose that for our community.
Well, just okay, so we're stuck with a 40, so let me get this right. Then we're stuck with a 40-year
Agreement that we have issues with because someone else won't negotiate, but
we can't cancel it. Like this is just getting ridiculous, right? And that's why we've asked the province for help.
right? So I don't know what we have to do to impress upon the minister that this needs help.
Right? But
We have gone
absolutely far and
beyond anything that any reasonable group would expect to do.
To resolve some of these issues, but we can't get them resolved. Right? But we also can't be forced into staying in a bad agreement. Like it's not good either side. So, I mean, that's why we reached out to the province and said, hey, please appoint this person.
Right? There has to be someone that can adjudicate this,
Somebody has to be able to make
decision, and then come to something.
Just to be clear, though, this is a facilitator. This is not an adjudicator. So this is a very different scenario than an adjudicator. And that this person just facilitates conversation and mediates conversation. There isn't a person that can be assigned as adjudicator and make the decision for the parties.
But then how did these things get resolved? Like, how? Or they just don't? Is that what I'm hearing?
This point, council's secondary direction to staff was to work with the CSRD staff. We have a new manager in place at the arena. We're gonna be meeting with them next week again. So we're gonna continue to move on. Whatever happens in the long run, staff are gonna continue to work with the CSRD staff on making the improvements that council sought. And we'll continue to work with them on that and report back to council on that progress. So we're not gonna do nothing in the interim. We're gonna keep working on it. At some point in time, if the two parties are able to come to an agreement on a change, that may be happen, and maybe the conversation will happen again in next year or following next year's election. We don't know.
So, and let's not forget that the new manager of that facility is now 70 to 80% Sycamus Recreation Center and works out of this facility. So at this point, until, like Dean said, election, perhaps it's an opportunity to work with a new manager and see if we can come to some sort of terms that work for our community. Councillor Rich?
Through the chair. So if we do get a facilitator, does the CSRD or area director, Rona Martin, then she could still refuse to sit with the facilitator?
Correct.
So would that not be like the first question? See if she'll even sit down with a facilitator?
Sure, we could ask it, but I'm thinking that I don't know what her response will be.
Yeah, no one does until we ask, but I think that absolutely needs to go into a letter to her to see if she will sit down with the facilitator. I mean, again, it doesn't matter what happens with the arena. They could gold plate the ice. It's a 45-year-old agreement. It's actually 45 years old. There is not an agreement like that besides being part of the UK that exists, that's old. It just needs to be redone. Government contracts like this. So I think we have to find waiting for an election or waiting for area directors to change doesn't seem logical to me. I think we need to find a different way around this. And if we have to campaign a minister, then I guess that's what we need to do. This is really important to our community.
Councillor Bushel?
Yeah, actually, Chair, I think we talked about it before. We know, if you read the minutes of the CSRD meeting, there's directors on there that are not willing, they don't want to go to arbitration. They don't want to pay more money. But I think if you address it and say we're going to arbitration or whatever you want to call it, and take it to the board and she'll have to answer to her peers. And I just think our community is never going to go anywhere if we don't get some kind of control of that rec center. I mean, recreation is huge in this community, and it's been sitting idle since the society folded. And I think we should pursue it myself. And BC policy has the government of BC has a policy guidelines for servicing establishment agreements. It says to review every 5 years. And John sat here, the CAO, and said it should be reviewed. But I just think, she's never going to do it till election, but I think we should still push it myself.
So council, do you wish to have staff send a letter to Director Martin asking for if she agrees to a facilitator? Go ahead, Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, I was gonna make a suggestion.
So the issue with this service agreement is fundamentally it's
about money, really. So why can't we cancel this and then send a letter to the CSRD saying we are committed to continue the funding as is? But the service agreement that's 45 years old is now over, but we're not walking away from the arena or our financial obligations. But in terms of this piece of paper and how we work with you,
that's done, right? We've tried.
so we should get rid of that agreement. Goodbye.
In terms of money and all the rest of it, I don't think it's an issue to
Continue on giving our contributions, and then we can work with them as we go forward.
But the issue really is the service
Agreement structure is insanity. I mean, it really is. I mean, we've been at this for 2 years or
more actually.
and we're just trying to get to a reasonable conclusion. But you can't do that if effectively one party, one person has the veto, and that's what's happened. It is negotiating in bad faith because there's no willingness to do so. So then what's our remedy, right? And I think
all of us want to see
the best for the arena, but you can also not, I think, accept being locked and trapped into agreement that we've all said doesn't work
for us. Now, I think we can give certainty to CSRD about funding. I mean, I feel totally comfortable with that. We're not saying we're walking away and we're not here to
support the arena and our portion thereof. But another service agreement or something
needs to be
in place going forward.
That's a good point. Can you reach out to the CSRD and see what it would look like with the contribution of funds and no agreement?
Well, you have to have an agreement in order for the funds to begin. So that's the kind of issue we have. We'd be essentially requesting another service review with different goals and objectives potentially, but you'd be asking for another service review.
which would.
So to end the service would close the arena for the period of time until there's a new service agreement in place. I don't understand what would be the objective at this point. So that's the problem with just abandoning this agreement. We need to have the agreement in place to continue to have an arena in this community.
Okay, so back to, should we just, next step, send a letter to Director Martin asking if she is interested in sitting with the facilitator? Bianca?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Like our ask was for us to operate the arena,
Mhm.
and that was our ask. I'm just wondering if the pivot can just be not formal service review, but at least reviewing that document and just set out some good parameters within that document. For example, early discussions regarding the next year's budget and like stuff like that. Like the actual fundamental agreement could be reviewed and rewritten. If we take out we are operating the arena piece, we can still review the document with them.
That would be a service review request on behalf of the District of Sycamus, not for the purpose of, as Bianca said, but for the purpose of an update of the service agreement. A modernization and update of the agreement.
Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, I think that's more like a rollback on our part, which I wouldn't be prepared to do. I mean, it's,
I think
going back to the mayor's suggestion, it should be 2 letters. One to the minister saying, we need them to intervene. This is deadlocked. We need them to intervene, and we should outline all the steps that we have taken to get to an agreement and ask the minister to please intervene. He's allowed to intervene in these cases, and they should in this one in particular, because we've exhausted absolutely everything. And then we should also send a letter just to, again, show that we want to work with Director Martin and ask if she would sit down
again and
to consider our requests.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Beach.
I agree with Ian. You can't have someone, on the board, the regional board, just refusing. That is, in government, must be illegal. You can't do that, to refuse to consider
Well, she did. Let's not forget, she did meet with us twice. She's just choosing not to allow, she does not want the district of Sycamus to manage the arena. She thinks it should stay with the CSRD. That's how she's feeling, and that's what she expressed. And until we can get a service review, agreement review, then we're kind of stuck there. Councillor Bushel.
Yeah, just, I mean, like, I agree with Ian and Pam. I think, if you pay 62% of the expenses, you should have some say.
Yeah,
And,
we don't need to manage it.
I think we should write the two letters.
That's Rich.
Yeah, through the chair, that's exactly what I was gonna say. I think we pay 64, but it might be only 62. It varies. We should have a seat at the table. We need a voice at bare minimum.
Yeah.
And then go from there. And we do need to write both letters. I don't think that, taking your ball and going home is fair.
We do have a seat at the table, but councillor seat, right?
Right.
Service agreement, that's a one vote.
Right, so we don't. Like, it doesn't,
It's just because this is such a weird situation where you have two votes, right? And because the minute I made the motion, she didn't second it. So poof, there it goes. It hits the floor, right? So it is what it is. Councillor Evans, it's not a great system. No, it's not a good system, but Councillor Evans.
Thank you. First, I'm glad our staff is working to get us more access, and I'm really glad to see that the person managing the arena is around more. B, I agree with Gord that I agree we should write the letters. But I guess C, I agree with Gord that if we get the process going, that what it's gonna do is gonna, again, put the ball in her court and also make the discussion appear on the table, and they have to do something about it. And then the last thing I'll say is that I think they need somebody from outside the situation to come in, not as a arbiter or judge, but somebody that can come with outside eyes and help communication, and that mediator is an important piece too. And I think we should include that in the letter, that with what we want.
Yeah.
So.
Facilitator to director.
Facilitator.
And a letter to the province.
I think so.
Well, the letter that council is thinking, we could elevate this beyond the staff to the deputy minister. And that would be the sort of next level that we would do with that letter. Council agrees to that. The second part, the letter to Director Martin, I would ask the council actually ask that staff meet with her and provide the letter. That I think is an important piece. I'm hoping that she'd be willing to sit down with the staff and have a conversation about, some of our concerns and what we're hoping to work with CSRD staff. Because I think some of those components do have common ground. And there is some common ground there that I think if we have some discussions directly with Director Martin will help with that conversation. So I don't want to see us not continue to move forward now, even though this is going to need to be resolved. We want to see progress. We're seeing some progress. We want to maintain that momentum.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's what council's saying. They would just want to keep moving on it. Councillor Bailey, you don't make that motion?
Yeah, I will make that motion to send a letter to, just one question, should it be the minister or the deputy minister?
So the highest official within the ministry is the deputy minister. They're the employee, and the minister is appointed as political body. So the
Right,
deputy minister is.
okay.
ADE.
Okay, so make a motion to send a letter to the deputy minister and asking for them to resolve the situation, to use their authority to resolve the situation, and to subsequently send to allow staff to meet with Director Martin with a letter requesting that she participate in
Facilitated.
discussions, further facilitated discussion.
Or would we like to CC Director Martin in a letter to the minister or to the AED?
I am fine with either way. It depends. I think Dean wanted to have an opportunity to sit down with her, but I'm fine either way, really.
The letter to the deputy minister, we should be CCing the regional district as well. So we would CC that letter to the other service member, which would be Director Martin, as well as to John, the CEO of the regional district, so that they're aware. They are the service provider at this moment.
Fair enough, yeah.
Okay, could I get a seconder on that? Councillor Ridge? All in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Beach, did you want to add?
Another
to that?
question, another question. Are we sure we want to ask for management at this point, or do we want to just ask for being included in, to have a voice on how it's managed? Because I'm trying to see the pushback. I'm trying to see what, how the response will come for a slightly different approach. I'm just not sure.
I think that we just kind of spun around the room with. that.
Okay, sorry. I'm a little bit late with that thought.
Sorry.
At this point, council's resolution would be asking for us to, they've denied the request for a facilitator.
Yeah,
Reaching out to the
Yeah,
deputy minister and asking the deputy minister to please assign a facilitator to this conversation.
yeah, okay.
And also have direct conversation with Director Martin and meet with her, provide a letter that we would like to move forward with mediation. And will you participate? That's long and the short.
From the resolution.
Resolution or recommendation?
The recommend.
What's that, a resolution?
The recommendation that Councillor Bailey suggested was that we write a letter to the
Deputy Minister.
deputy minister and
Requesting that the province intervene in this.
Can I read?
so, yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
please.
That staff be directed to write a letter to the Deputy Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs emphasizing the need for the Sycamoozin District Recreation Center service review to be resolved.
Mhm.
Okay, and that staff be directed to arrange a meeting with Area E Director Rona Martin to deliver a letter requesting that she participate in conversations with the facilitator regarding the Sycamoozin District Recreation Center review.
I think that's excellent.
Got it? Okay,
Yeah.
just wanted to confirm.
That's
Thank you.
perfect. Thank you, Captain. That's great. Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we've got some committee and regional district reports. Does anyone want to speak to any of those? Councillor Bushel.
Through the chair, Colleen, and you attend the CSRD meetings, those buoys out in the bay in Bear Lake there, those, they're talking about in that one of the committee letters there, they're talking about doing inspections on those buoys and making sure they're all legal. Can you give us just a little something?
I don't think that the Mara Lake was included in that. I think that it's area G and area C that are filled with buoys. And I think that you do have to register a buoy if you require one. So it's not a bad thing that if someone checks the buoys to make sure that they're registered, it's a good thing, or it's gotta be some law, some control, right?
Yeah, well, if they talk about finding the person that actually installs them or the landowner on the landowner next to the buoy. So, it's just, I just wanted some clarity if they're inspecting those ones.
They're asking the province does really have the manpower to run that project full speed ahead. But yeah, they do have to be.
Yeah, more and more boats out there.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay, anyone else? Anything else? Okay, we're just gonna move into public input now. 15 minutes for public input. Is there any questions from the gallery? Dr. William, Steve, state your name, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Steve Johnson. I live at 78 Old Town Road. I have a few questions concerning the quarry. Mr. Kyle was here. So, my slide. Question I had was, the permit that was issued back in the early years, wondering why it was turned down to begin with. Because I can't seem to find any information on why that permit, because I was told it was turned down by council. Oh, actually by your planner. And was there a reason for that to be turned down?
Go ahead, Dean.
So the district expressed concern, council at the time passed a resolution, they expressed input, provided input to the provincial application process. not supporting the application to proceed. Ministry received that information, and for a number of years, it sort of languished. And then in 2018, it reinvigorated. He began to do some work. The ministry included some additional provisions that included a reference to the district's concerns as well as neighbor concerns. And those were incorporated into the permit that was issued.
Okay. Does what is the final plan for the property?
I actually don't think that the property owner knows exactly what direction they are going right now.
My own concern was the zoning bylaw for those properties in that area, including my own. There was a stipulation on there that the zoning bylaw is 2 residents. Nothing more.
Oh, no. What is it?
And to see our country residential is the zoning. And I just wanted to know if that's what's happening, or is there further development put forth?
Go ahead, James.
The zoning is the land use that's in place under the district's bylaws. At this point, there's no application to construct a single family dwelling or 2 single family dwellings on the property. The
Okay,
mining permit component of this is independent of the district zoning bylaw.
okay. So how much material is going to be removed from that site?
Your worship, at this point, we're not aware of a notice of work to begin, but the volumes would be determined based on the area and the engineering that's been done for the site. The total volume that would come out would be determined as they progress. We don't have a volume that we can provide, and the permit doesn't have the volume.
So in the zoning bylaws, there's no bylaw saying how much material you can remove from a site and or move or any of that. So there has been no development permit issued whatsoever, right?
Correct.
I'm here because my concern is that, and I know Todd knows what my concerns are, is that I have a house that's directly below this site that I have a lot of money involved in, and it's everything I have is into that house. And I have a 22-foot high concrete wall that retains the bank behind me. I looked at the graphics that have been put forth, and my slope on my land is only half of what it is behind my land. The steepness doubles. So in order to bench that upper part, there's going to be a lot of material to be moved, and the bank is going to be really steep in behind. And if there's any blasting going to happen, which apparently there might be, that my concern is falling rock, etc. And above that site, the mountain continues quite high, and there is rock protrusions, cliffs and whatnot up there, and how much loose rock there is in that area, I have no idea. And I'm just concerned, and which brings me to the point where for us as a homeowner, I'm going to need to know who the blasting company is and what insurance they have before anything happens, that my property is protected entirely, that I'm not going to end up having a cracked foundation or debris falling onto my property from blasting, etc., or just generally moving material around. So my concerns are like real. And if I can have answers to that, that'd be great.
Dean, you want to go ahead?
That would be,
If I could ask that we sit down and meet, I'll explain to you the blasting permit process, can give you those assurances. But this really isn't a great venue to do that, because I'd like to sit down and be able to show you the documents and let you go away with the documents, so you've got them, take home with you. So we can set up a meeting. I'll give you my contact information and we'll set up a meeting.
oh, that sounds good.
Okay.
I appreciate that. Great, thank
We
you.
hear you. Thanks, Steve. Anyone else in the gallery that wants to? No, anyone online? All right. Recommendation that the regular council meeting for June the 25th, 2025 be adjourned at 5:56. Councillor Bushel, Councillor Rich, all in favor? Carried. We are done.